that's when like my life flipped. I remember one of the first moments I wanted to have sex and he just didn't want to have sex. And I felt a little bit rejected.
Because like we have to think about so many things all the time. Like being able to just go through an experience where we're guided is so enjoyable for us.
It's like, Katie, I really want to step into this, but my partner's not on board.
Probably more concerned about being good at it than enjoying it.
Welcome to the School of Sensuality podcast, guys. I'm Katie Bampton and I'm joined by my beautiful friend Amanda DeLosa today. And I found it so easy to go through life to talk about subjects that evolves around the children, the weekends, the parties, smoking, alcohol. But when do we have time to openly talk about sex? It's such a subject that's kind of shoved under the carpet. We all do it, but no one talks about it. And today on this podcast, we are going to bring that narrative back around. And I'm welcoming in my beautiful friend, Amanda DeLosa, to the School of Sensuality podcast.
Thanks for having me, Katie. And it's great to have you here in Sydney. For those who don't know, we met through my podcast and having you as a guest on my show and then developing a friendship and then inviting you to come and stay with me in Sydney. So that's been amazing.
It's exciting. And thank you for styling me today as well. A bit of warmth.
So I said to you, I'm like, don't worry, I've got everything here that you need.
And what I love about the friendship and the relationship that we've created and continue on is that you are a mum, you are an entrepreneur, you are someone who's really connected to your body and flows through that. But I have a curiosity around, did you always have that connection with your body and this openness to talk about such vulnerable subjects? Or is this something you've kind of like found over time?
I think it's something that I've definitely become more like embodied within and comfortable talking about probably in the last few years. I've been very open to different kind of, experiences and understanding the whole world of sexuality for a long time. We'd say probably like 20 years. But yeah, I think in terms of like finding my voice, more so realizing how important it is that we talk about it and realizing that like I am that person in the friendship groups that will bring up the topic. And people need to discuss this more because a lot of people are obviously missing out like quite a lot on not actually approaching it. So yeah, I think I've always been very, very passionate about this space, but finding my voice, having my own platform like yourself has definitely been kind of the trigger to do more about it.
Amazing. Thank you. And so when you've noticed like you've got your platform and you've been speaking about this more, have you noticed that people around you, whether it be that your friends or family or those listening to your podcast, are starting to ask you questions and then opening themselves within that as well after, listening and seeing that you have your voice in this realm of sexuality?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting you kind of get maybe two responses. So sometimes some people might find it a little bit uncomfortable that their friend or their family member is talking about this subject, right? So you may not be having conversations with those people and they may actually not be listening to the episodes. But that's okay because that's not who I'm obviously trying to reach. I'm trying to reach people who actually have curiosity and want to know more about this. So yes, definitely when it comes to those who are curious and want to learn more, they're definitely reaching out. I think we even said to you last night that in terms of the episodes on my show, since we've launched, our conversation actually ranks number 2 behind the, intro episode, which is always going to have the most watches because it's the first ever, episode. So it's definitely, the data's there, the people reaching out to me on social media. We even have a friend coming to dinner with us tonight who said, oh my God, is Katie here in Sydney? I can't wait to meet her. I have so many questions for the two of you after listening to your podcast. So I think, yeah, definitely like so many people, well, so many women, I mean men too, but more so women want to discuss these topics, but they need to feel like they can trust the person that they're speaking to about it. And I think that's something you and I have in common is like we're really grounded, honest. We've got big hearts. Like I think people feel really safe in our presence to discuss these things. So it's like, yeah, how do we I guess like teach them to go and have these conversations with their girlfriends and not sort of, allow just like shame and judgment and fear kind of mute them more or less.
Yeah, and I really like how you said mute them because that makes me think of when we were looking the other day in the Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there for women and girls to, have these conversations around intimacy, pleasure, connection. My husband does this. What can I get some help? And every comment, every question was always anonymous. And this is muting themselves. This is not allowing themselves to be seen in their vulnerability, in their true expression. in actually how they want to come across, because the majority of women in the world, we are scared. We are scared to even say the word sex if it's not behind closed doors. We are scared to say, oh, I really want this, because we're scared of being judged, or we're scared to have the conversation with our partner thinking, what are they going to think about me if I do this?
Yeah.
But the reality is, when we don't allow ourselves to speak up and we don't allow ourselves to step through that discomfort, this bottles up inside of us so much. And then that's when that can explode in such an unhealthy way, whether that, male or female, that can be exploring your desires outside of the relationship, or, cheating and affairs, because we don't have the skills to be able to navigate this within us. And I think that is the first one for anyone listening out there, is okay, just asking themselves the question, am I scared to speak up about sex? And why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think where does it come from? And so for me, I think back to, everything comes from the root of what happened to us when we were children. I'm thick in the work at the moment, again, with doing inner child work. It's something that, I know I'll be doing for the rest of my life. But I think back to when I was a child and what were my first sort of experiences around the concept of sex, or the word sex, or what it meant. And growing up in a family where we were Catholic and we went to Catholic schools, it was very shameful, very dirty. And even when I reached, puberty and started, I think there was one day we had sex education at school and they gave out condoms. And I had one in my school bag, and my dad found it at the time. And literally, this is disgusting, but he literally called me a filthy animal, a whore, and a slut. And this is part of my childhood trauma story, and I'm willing to share it because I'm sure other people have been through similar things. But I literally was told that I was to eat off my own knife and fork and cutlery set, and given my own plastic bowl, and told to eat away from the family because I was filthy and diseased and I would disease everyone else. So that was my initiation into what my parents were teaching me around, what sex was. So yeah, it's interesting to know that that's kind of how I was initiating into it, right? And how I was taught, my belief system around sex was it's shameful, it's dirty, it's sinful, with the religious background, that kind of thing. To think that, many, many years on, here I am, a 40-year-old woman, and I probably have to give a lot of credit to meeting Jack, 3 years ago, and the work that he introduced me to within the Tantra space and all that kind of thing, into more of the conscious lovemaking and that sort of thing, that I've developed such a beautiful, healthy relationship with it now. I think, again, to your question before, when you said why, or, when did I start talking about this, or where did my voice come from it? I think that is the point. It's I've got a backstory and I've got so much history with the shame component, but I've managed to pop out the other side and be in a really beautiful space with it now. So I think that's where we kind of identify that we have stories that we can tell to empower other women to really seek that change and see that it can be different.
Absolutely. And I'm just not going to bypass that a second. I'm just going to come back to something you shared around, sitting around that dinner table. And that's obviously just blown me off my seat. But there is, yes, you have been shamed and had that experience when you were younger, but that comes from your parents being uneducated. So they've been uneducated, and, it comes down that lineage of who came before us. And if they didn't have the learnings and lessons, that gets passed on. But it's so beautiful now that you have built this connection with yourself. You're not scared to talk about intimacy and pleasure. And now you can also pass that on to your daughter in a more of a healthy way. She was sitting there this morning holding my crystal yoni wand, and she looked at me, she was like, what's this, Katie? And I was like, she's starting young. Obviously, she hasn't got a clue what it is. But she's just being, she's just having the feeling of oh, this is something. And, as she goes down, it's going to come back in, rather than kind of being shoved in a corner and not have that spoken about. I actually do have another incredible podcast for mothers on how they can speak to their children about puberty, periods, and pleasure, which I'm going to link at the end of ours. That's a very, very beautiful lessons from an erotic mother who brings the periods and pleasure to light with her child. So that's very, very heartwarming for mums out there. And I'm going to come back around, as you spoke about, going through that shame into coming into like the queen that you are now within the space of sexuality, and Jack supported you in that through the tantra. And it was a very similar experience to myself. You know, I was the vanilla prude. They used to call me Ugly Betty in school. You know, I had braces, I had glasses, I had a fringe, and I was just I was named and shamed for my physical appearance. And then when I came to meet Rob, that's when like my life flipped. I remember one of the first moments I wanted to have sex, and he just didn't want to have sex, and I felt a little bit rejected. And I was just like, oh my God, is this normal? Like, I'm just dating a guy and he just like doesn't want to have sex. And internally within inside of me, I kind of crumbled a little bit. But he didn't just leave it at that. He went and got a sex toy and he bought it to me. It was just like, you can have some fun. And I was like, I've never sat in front of my partner before and pleasured myself. And he has... for those who don't know, Rob is an ex or a porn star, so he's very, very equipped into this world of sexuality and tantra, swinging, polyamory, and monogamy. And so he gave me, this was my opportunity to kind of, do I want to sit there and freeze, or do I want to sit into that discomfort and come out the other side? And I am so glad that I had that moment of discomfort of being handed a sex toy to use in front of my partner. I was like, is this normal? Like, am I meant to be doing this? And it took me some time, you know, like he was just chilling there doing his own thing, but he was very used to that. And I was sitting on the bed and I was like using this toy, and I was just like, oh, don't look at me. Like, And the more that I went along, it did take me a while to actually really get out of my head, because I was obviously overthinking that the rejection was all there. And when I was able to just come back into my breath, use my breath to breathe, I'm like, okay, my body feels a lot more calmer. My head's not racing. I'm in a moment of like, this actually feels good. And I'm happy that I can do this with my partner. He was just lying next to me, you know, just doing whatever he was. And this is actually something I get my clients to do, is we can have moments like that in a relationship where the partner just doesn't want to have sex, but you do. And it's not just about forcing someone to do something if they don't want to. It's like, okay, how can we find that in the middle? I was obviously wanting to have that intimacy and pleasure because that's I was turned on, I wanted it. And he wasn't there, so we match. And with my clients, I get them to do this mutual masturbation in front of each other. And it's so uncomfortable if someone has never done that before. But I was like, okay, you're both going to get you, or obviously for the female having her toy, his man's already got his crown jewels down there, putting a blindfold on, and they're sitting next to each other and they're just playing with themselves and touching themselves. And then they can gradually take the blindfolds off and then have the experience of like, oh, okay, like I touch myself like this and I touch myself like that. And it's so edgy. It's so uncomfortable for us to be seen in a way of pleasuring ourselves, because all we've known is shame. All we've known is that it's dirty and that we shouldn't be doing this. This takes a big, like a lid off freedom, heart opening yourself into what pleasure can be. And also when we're sitting next to our partner and, you know, we're seeing how they touch themselves, then when we come to have that sex together, we're like, oh, you know, I remember he touches himself like this, or he uses his hand like this. And so we can learn from that and then give that to him as well. But I so remember that moment. It was like, and that was a big one of my edge into like,
yeah. Definitely. And it kind of reminds me of my big edge that I was talking to you about yesterday. Because this, like, the partner selection and who you go into this journey with is so epic as well. Like, well, so incredibly important. You know, when I met Jack, you know, the first time we made love, I remembered it was the first time that I'd ever made love with a new partner completely sober. Because in the past, there'd always be like a little bit of alcohol or something to knock the edge off, to make you like feel relaxed. And, you know, you could just kind of go into it without like, you know, being in your head. And so like to have that experience was so incredible, and to really enjoy it and really be like in my body, because I wasn't checked out, you know, on alcohol or anything like that. But yeah, like, you know, having some of those uncomfortable moments and overcoming that discomfort in sex with a partner, especially someone you really love and trust, it just builds something so beautiful on the other side of it.
And what do you think, or why do you think that you needed to drink the alcohol with partners before you had sex?
I think, yeah, because we do overthink things too much sometimes. We can get too much in our head. I'm also someone who, you know, is a epic people pleaser and, you know, obviously high achiever and wants to be perfect. And so I would probably overthink it to the point where like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm really, really good at this. Probably more concerned about being good at it than enjoying it, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
So I think like taking the alcohol in, it kind of numbs out a lot of the overthinking of that to a certain extent. But what I found with Jack is I didn't overthink at all because we had like connected so well. You know, there was an energy that just made me feel calm. And I think that obviously came a lot from like the work that he had done and bringing that tantric sort of love making into our first experience together.
And that really shows like this, how much safety a woman needs in her body to fully surrender, to fully open without needing any external substances. Don't get me wrong. Look, I've used them before as well in my past as well. But obviously now coming into any sexual experience, if my body doesn't feel at ease, doesn't feel comfortable, then I will just never not put myself into a situation and interact physically with a man. And I feel like probably a lot of women listening out there have these experiences where they're like, okay, I'm going out on a date. I know that I'm going to have sex. I need to. And they'll just have a glass of alcohol or a glass of wine to kind of take that edge off. And I work on this with my clients as well. I have clients that come to me as just like, yes, Katie, I'm the same. I can't go out for a date or can't go and hook up without having alcohol. And having been in the swingers world as well. So we did a lot of parties. We have like 140 people in a swingers party, and it was quite alcohol infused because it takes away any insecurities, takes away any fear, and you can just be in that confidence. But reality is we all have that confidence within us. It's just kind of pushed down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so with my clients, I'm like, okay, how many drinks do you need to go and have to have that experience? She's like, Katie, I need like 5 drinks. I was like, okay, well, the next time, can you do 4 drinks? And then next time, do 3 drinks. And each time we rip these layers back a little bit. And it's uncomfortable, it's heart-opening, it's vulnerable. But when we allow ourselves to take those little layers back, she's like, Katie, oh my God, it's been a couple of months and I only need 1 drink now. And then that 1 drink will gradually come into a space where you can feel connected to your body in a way of like, oh my God, I'm actually feeling my pleasure. I'm not disassociating, I'm not disconnecting, and I'm being present. And like, wow, this is what sex is meant to feel like.
Yeah.
Because we just often show up in the bedroom and think like this is what we're meant to do. You know, we're meant to jump in the bedroom after the first date, we open our legs, we go down on him rather than, am I actually here for my own pleasure?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like another reason why some people might have a drink or 2 is to feel turned on as well. And then that's interesting because if you are drinking or taking drugs or doing anything like that, like it's artificial sort of like turn on, right? So you don't know if you actually are really like sexually compatible with someone or turned on by them. So this experience, even with Jack, meant that I was able to see, are we like sexually compatible without there being any distractions or any mood enhancers or anything going on. And and that's where I learned like literally had the best sex of my life because the sexual compatibility was so strong without there being anything to distract away from that. And I even said to Jack last night when we went to bed, because I heard of the term demisexual in Mobland that we've been watching lately. And it's where you're only attracted to and want to have sex with like this one person. Like that's the only person who can turn you on, the only one. And that's literally how I feel with Jack. Like there is such a strong attraction to him sexually that it doesn't take me very much to like get turned on around him at all, if ever. So like,
that's great. You know, of course we want our husbands and our partners to be like that.
Yeah.
And I'd love to bring that into, you know, like, you know that Jack can turn you on. Like, you know that is how you can get turned on. And I'm going to bring this into the conversation of what we've been speaking about this week is your erotic blueprints. And for those listening out there, we have 5 erotic blueprints, which was created by Jaya. I'm going to put the links in the description so you can actually do the quiz and find out what your erotic blueprint is. So we have sexual. Sexual is someone who is turned on by looking at sex, hearing about sex, or talking about sex. Sensual is often a lot of women, and this is when we are the touch or the sensation place, so like softly eating strawberries or being in the sun. Kinky is what it says on the label. Kinky is like being blindfolded, being tied up, or having things out of the norm. We have energetics is like what you spoke about a little bit. It's like feeling turned on from the energy that your partner is bringing. And energetics comes from the sexual compatibility we have within each other. Because there is so many people in relationships who aren't energetically connected. They are trying to force themselves to have sex, but just sexually, the sexual attraction is just not there. And it's science, right? You know, you can't force something if it's not there. And then we have shapeshifter, which is a mix of all of them. So which one are you?
I'm the shapeshifter. And then, so I did the quiz before Jack and I'm like, oh, I'm really keen to know like what he is. So he sat down next to me and he did the quiz and then it spits it out. Shapeshifter.
Yeah.
And I did kind of think that because I'm like, we are so compatible and we are so like alike with this sort of stuff. Given the percentage breakdown of all of the 5 blueprint types, there were like slightly different percentages. So I think like I was slightly higher on sensual, which makes sense because I'm a female and he was slightly higher on the sexual, but very, very similar results. And very, very good news because not that we needed it, we already knew, but it means that, you know, like our sex life going forward can always be fun and flexible and fluid and like whatever, you know, we kind of want to explore. It won't get boring.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And I think, you know, the erotic blueprints is something that I use often with my clients at the start of when we're on the 8-week cycles I do working with clients working together, because the more that they know about themselves, the more that I know about them, the more that they know about each other, I can fast track their reconnection or rekindling of intimacy. Because if you have one who is just sexual and the other one is just energetic, but they don't actually know this, they're going to have a mismatched libido. They're going to be thinking the other person doesn't want to have sex. They're going to be overthinking all the time. They're going to be thinking, oh, we just don't have time for this. When reality is, if you knew that you're a sensual being and you knew that your partner was sensual, we would just create scenarios that is going to turn you and your partner on from that, such as, you know, sensual can be dimming the lights, lighting a candle, putting some soft music on and getting the massage oil out. It doesn't need to take 5 hours. You know, if it's a 5-hour erotic experience, it can be, but it's just a little couple of minutes that's really going to create the mood of sensuality. So the woman especially is going to feel so much more relaxed in her body. She's going to be turned on through the touch. And then as the man is creating this experience, let's say maybe he was more sexual, he's going to be feeling, oh, I'm giving this to my partner. She's turning herself on. She's moving her hips. She's wiggling. And then that's how we can lead into sex. Rather than just expecting our partners to come home, you know, after picking the kids up, dropping the bags off, thinking, okay, they're waiting for them in the bedroom, but we're not turned on. We're still in the work mode from the work that we've just been doing. We're thinking about what's for tea. There's no time or space to actually come into our body to feel. And so it's about really putting in or adding those little golden nuggets that it doesn't take too much time, but it's really going to affect how we show up in ourselves and then how we can bring this into the relationship.
And there can be like things that don't, like as you say, like can not even take that much time at all set up in terms of, you know, candles and massage and that type of thing. Like I know for me, like I just really love, you know, eye gazing. So like even it was like just 30 seconds of deeply looking into each other's eyes and then making out for another 30 seconds like before jumping into, you know, sex is a way of, you know, tapping into that sensual side of things and also like that really deeply connected, you know, experience that I like as well. But yeah, it is interesting. You're talking about like understanding the different types of blueprints to understand how you can fast track working together with couples. Because Jack and I did a session with you yesterday, obviously. And one thing that we discovered from that session is that I like to have my eyes open more so when any of those sensual activities are happening. I feel like for me, what did I say? I said something like it feels more intense for me to be seeing it and feeling it, whereas Jack preferred the eyes closed. That was more intense for him. So it's so interesting to learn those sorts of things. And this is why, like, I highly recommend anyone, whether you're a couple or individual, working with coaches for all of the different areas in your life, particularly the ones that take up the most which play such an important role in your total well-being, right? So, you know, sex is huge. But yeah, really, really fun to, you know, work with a specialist coach who actually knows how to, you know, join the dots and the questions to ask and how to like set the space. Like it was just such a good experience to go through yesterday. Like I really, really enjoyed it. So did Jack. And yeah, so I think for anyone listening, I think, don't be sort of afraid or shamed or think that there's something wrong if you need to reach out to like a sex or relationship coach, because there's nothing wrong in our sexual relationship. It's that we just always are looking for ways to like be edgier and like make things better and like just have different experiences and I guess like deepen the relationship that we have. It's not about fixing something that's broken. It's about, you know, like sustaining it. and helping
adding to the flavor of it. And I'm just going to give a bit of like, I've got a feeling people are going to be curious and thinking, what did you guys get up to? So I'm just going to expand on that a little bit more. So how I run my sessions when I do them in person with, I only work with couples or individual females. We do a lot of connection exercises. And in these connection exercises, this allows me to understand each individual and for you to understand yourself, such as Jack prefers his eyes closed and you prefer your eyes open. So we'll have a lot of connection, intimacy, emotional connection exercises, and then we went into massage and touch. So I had the honor of giving Amanda a beautiful womb and yoni massage, and I really brought this into a way of, you are a new mum, and I brought this into a way of bringing Amanda into a way of releasing and relaxing her body, connecting with a child that she has just birthed, and coming into a space of, okay, this is my body as well. Yes, I come from my mother and I am a mother, but really allowing that space to connect with her body. And then we went in, so Jack supported me, and then we kind of went down into more of a yoni massage. And then I guided Amanda through lingam massage for Jack. And then we went into some Kama Sutra Tantra lovemaking positions. I stay fully clothed in this whole experience, guys, but I'm guiding the couple. But that is like, that is next level. That is not always what I do with couples. Some couples, we really keep the clothes on.
We are a bit next level.
Yeah, we went next level. And that is the name of your podcast as well. Next season. Next season, next level.
Next.
Yeah. But for couples, thinking, listen to this like, oh my God, Katie, how on earth can I do that? You don't have to go to that deep level. We can just gradually build yourselves up for at the end of our session together. You're like, when I'm leaving, you're like, okay, I'm ready to have sex with you. And this doesn't always have to be in the sessions with me. I have couples that keep their clothes on. And I do this in person or online as well. So if you are, depending where you are internationally, I'm currently based in Thailand and Australia. So if you are wanting to reach out, hit me up. I'm over here and we can just rekindle that love. That's that honeymoon phase that's kind of once got lost, or the moment that really needs a bit more connection and love within your relationship as well.
And I think the key thing is too, because obviously Jack and I are very, very busy people with, the lifestyle that we lead. What's refreshing is to have someone come in and actually coach and direct and give sort of, I guess, advice, but kind of, it's more in the direction side of things, because we have to think about so many things all the time. Being able to just go through an experience where we're guided is so enjoyable for us, because we're often the ones making all the decisions and guiding everyone else, as, two people who are kind of in leadership sort of positions. It's just so nice to surrender and actually just get to play and kind of do as you're told, I guess, in a way as well. And it does put you in your, it puts you out of your comfort zone a little bit too, because you don't know what you're going to be asked to do. Some of the questions and stuff that we had to answer, I'm sitting there on the spot thinking, what am I going to say here and what am I going to say there? But it's super healthy, and it's just great to shake things up, I guess, because things do become, things can just naturally fall into a lot of routine and monotony. And, we're two people that are very aware of that. So we're always, getting onto that when we can, but just to have that extra bit of guidance, I think is just so crucial.
I'm so glad you guys had such a yummy, happy experience. And yes, you are entrepreneurs and you are on the go, you are driven, and you also, have a child. And there are so many out there who have children. And when we're having to think about ourselves, the relationship and the kids, I know there are so many couples out there who put the intimacy on the back seat because they don't have that time. But we have time for appointments. We have time for the dentist. We have time to do to fill the schedule, but when do we actually have that time for ourselves and that connection? And it doesn't always, I do run 2 to 3 hour sessions, but it doesn't always have to be that. It can be the small things in the relationship where you're intentionally having half an hour just after the kids have gone to bed one evening to connect. And that connection doesn't always have to be physical sex. That connection can be intimately talking to each other. That can be a soft massage. That can be one giving and one receiving. That can be, talking about the fantasies that you want to desire. That can be turning each other on. Any type of different pleasurable way that feels pleasure in your body can be brought forward, and that is naturally over time going to lead you more into physical intimacy. Because I have couples come to me and they're like, Katie, we haven't had sex in 6 months. And I do not tell them to go and have sex straight away. I was like, guys, we're going to take the sex off the table, because if for 6 months there's a reason why they have not had sex, and we can often be too much in the head. Obviously there's a lot going on, but we come back about to that small doses of intimately connecting again. And naturally for a woman, when she feels open, her heart is open, the man can notice that as we go along, naturally their bodies will start opening up and coming closer together. They will naturally come and have sex again. And they're like, Katie, you didn't even tell us to have sex, but we've been having sex. I'm like, this is because we've been opening your hearts, we've been connecting with love, and we've been connecting in a way that your body wants it. And your body feels ready to kind of come into that connection again. So after our session, what is like a couple of things, or maybe one thing that you, from the experience that you've had, that you and Jack are now going to implement into your life moving forward?
Well, I think I definitely want to do more of those types of sessions, whether that just be like a quarterly thing or a bi-monthly type thing. I think it's really important to make the time and do that. And again, because it's just nice to not be in the director's chair and just actually have someone else like help us move through that. But in addition to that, obviously, enjoyed some of the Kama Sutra sort of positions and stuff yesterday, which will allow for, those experiences to be like a bit slower and last longer and that type of thing as well, which is always fun. What else? I really like the connection ritual things too. I would say that like for a while now, I've actually had the Esther Perel cards, the connection cards, and I've been really, we're just busy, so we just don't really get a chance to sit down and sort of whip out a card deck and ask each other questions. But like, I really love that, so I would like to try and implement a little bit more of that somehow. But yeah, like even thinking about different date night ideas, I would love to do like more like overnight staycation in a hotel. Take the cards, get room service, have a bottle of wine and, connect and basically make love all night and into the morning and have a late checkout. So yeah, it definitely gets the brain thinking about like what more you could be doing. But it also does confirm that like what you've got is already so great as well. Like we often sort of, that's the thing, like we particularly I think with sex and desire, like the lust can come into it of like, wanting more and more and more and better and better and better. And sometimes it's just like a case of having gratitude and actually realizing like, wow, like the sex life that I have is already like incredible. If it stayed like this forever, I'd be like super happy. But being the type of people that are both very much into, personal development and growing and learning and like shape-shifting into all these different things, like of course we're always going to have an appetite to experience more and do more. So I think, the session essentially reminds us of how important it is to continue to do that type of work and not just leave it up to just like our own kind of intuition or let it sort of turn into kind of a monotonous sort of same situation. Like it's just good to think outside the box a bit with it, I guess. And
I like how you said, go into a hotel. And I work with a lot of parents, and being an ex-kindergarten teacher as well, I've got quite an understanding. But I always get the parents, if they can have their date night outside of the house, in a hotel, if they've got the babysitter, looking after the children, because when parents stay in the house, we are still in that same routine, or anyone really, we're still in that same routine. So you're going to see the washing on the floor. You're going to see the knives and forks in the sinks. You're going to see the computer that needs work doing. And then we take ourselves away from the actual experience that we're meant to be having. So I'm really big on that. Is just like, if they can, is go and stay in the hotel for a night. So you've not got any more distractions around you. So you can actually just have that time for connection. And I'm going to, so I do the date nights in person, or I work online, but I do have a date night course coming as well. So in my course, it's an 8-week program. And so this is 8 date nights. So a lot of connection exercises, turn-ons, teasing, strip cheeses, massage, sensual touch, connection that couples can use. The videos are really short because it's all an explanation and it's all guided. So then the couples can use this for this date night experience. So if they can agree to do this together. I was like, okay, we're setting in a date night. This is our time. We're going to do one of Katie's date night videos. And just that little bit, even if it's an hour, is really going to boost that connection in the relationship. And it's not just for the sex. It's the intimacy, the pleasure, and the connection. When we allow ourselves and our body to feel pleasure, to feel turned on individually or together, our life around us becomes so much more erotic and passionate because we are feeling that our sex is turned on. You know, sex doesn't have to be penetration. Sex can be using your energy in a way that this is our life force. This is an energy that we are all created for. And if sex is turned off within our body, our life force energy is turned off. And this is the reason so many women are overthinking. This is the reason so many women are overwhelmed and stressed and don't have pleasure, because their body is literally just switched off. And it's about feeling, it's like, okay, Katie, I'm actually really switched off, and how can I bring that back on? And that necessarily isn't always through sex and penetration. It's through connecting firstly with yourself, and I teach this all inside the School of Sensuality, connecting with your partner, such as date nights, couples moments, to really like boost that intimacy and boost that love that we can have together.
Yeah, because I would say like Jack and I, as an example, you know, we're very open to a lot of stuff, you know, sexually within the constraints, obviously, of our monogamous relationship. I know that if you use the word open in this space, it can kind of, you know, give off a different vibe. But I just meant in terms of like being shapeshifters and how willing we are to try different things and grow together, you know, through sexuality. But I know that a lot of people potentially listening would be like, oh my gosh, like me and my partner, we're not on the same level with this stuff. Like I can't imagine going through an 8-week course, and I can't imagine us doing these date nights. Like it would feel awkward. One would be into it, one wouldn't. Like I'm very lucky that Jack and I have a dynamic where we're both very like, yeah, cool, let's like give it a go. But for people who are at the other end of it, like what's some of the advice for them just like literally starting out, because they're probably, listening to me and going, oh, we're like nowhere like those people. Because I get that in my friendship groups, like, oh my God, Amanda, you're like the most, you know, into this space out of anyone that I know. So yeah, like taking it back a few steps to someone who, wants to invite more of, you know, wants to cultivate, I guess, and grow their sexual energy, but don't really know where to start.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess like if there's one person in the relationship who has this idea, it's like knowing where their partner is at. So if their partner is someone who never wants to talk about sex, who they're not even having sex, we don't want to go straight into a date night experience. We just want to start with gradually dropping in some seeds and some grains of like, okay, how can we gradually openly have these conversations? And that might not be, that's definitely not when you're in the bedroom. This is like when you're in a really good space, there's no stress, you both feel calm, and you're having these conversations, starting off with, oh babe, do you remember that time when we da-da-da-da-da? I really enjoyed when we da-da-da-da-da. What can we do together that is going to build this intimacy in us together? That is a roundabout way to talk about sex that isn't too direct. And then for either partner in the relationship, they'll just think it's a normal conversation. And the more that they have these conversations in the calm space, not when there's too much firecracking going on, they'll have these conversations. And then maybe in the next couple of weeks, they'll be like, oh, do you remember that conversation we spoke about having massages? Well, I got these blindfolds for us. Shall we try the blindfolds and try massages? And it's just really step by step in having these little experiences. And I think a thing that I'm really good at, I see a lot of couples, and it can generally be the man or the woman coming to me as just like, Katie, I really want to step into this, but you know, my partner's not on board. Yeah. And I have this, maybe I'll screenshot it here, I'll put it in the notes. I have text or words for women and directly for men. And I can say 9 times out of 10, it works. It's just a lingo and text for the men to use to speak to their wife, or the wife to use to speak to their partner. Because usually it's just like, oh, I want to do this. Why can't we do this? Yeah. No. It's just like, hey, babe, I'm feeling like this. Can we? So I'll put those in the show notes below in a way. And generally what happens, the way you use those words are opened up and your partner feels a lot more comfortable. And then a lot of clients, like, you know, they might just jump on a phone call with me, or they might just pass me in the street. And that initial 10 to 15 minutes, they're so cold, they're so prude, it's like, I don't even want to have this conversation. But afterwards, they notice how comfortable I make them feel, how they can have that space to be like, this is so right. How they can have that space to be like, oh, do I really need to, be in my tight suit, or can I just relax a little bit?
Yeah.
And when they allow themselves to notice that they can relax, then that's when the magic comes through on the other side. And I have a lot of free PDFs, a lot of free exercises in my School of Sensuality of exercises that isn't always interacting with me in the flesh. It's like through a video or through a PDF or through something else that's going to warm them up first. And not everyone is ready to jump into like you said, a lovemaking tantric session. But I think it's more so allowing themselves to open to the curiosity.
Yeah, I think the curiosity, and I think the other thing is too, I don't think a lot of couples really talk about what their desires are. I think there's a fear of sharing their desire because there's a fear of shame or judgment. The way I see it, though, is that don't you want to know what your partner desires, like what truly turns them on, because it's part of knowing who they are. Like if you know everything about your partner, your husband, your wife, but their desires, there's a percentage of that person that you don't know. Like I think it's so intimate and so beautiful to like know the warts and all of someone that you're with, like to know all of the edges and all of the parts of them, and not to feel like there's any shadow sides or any parts being hidden, right? Because that's where you can truly like drop into this deep intimacy and trust with a partner. So there has to be a way though of safely being able to have those conversations, right? Because what can happen is someone can, voice a desire. The other person could be triggered by it, and then make the partner feel bad for, suggesting it or opening it up. So it is a delicate art, but it is something that people, particularly in relationships, should really try and navigate. Like that's something that's really, really important to create that safe space to be able to transfer that information across. Because otherwise you're never going to have that depth in your intimacy.
Absolutely.
There's always going to be this missing piece.
And I love what you shared around the shadows there. So how I kind of suggest is when I work with clients is like taking a bird's eye view of the experience. So let's say you've got two people in a relationship. One is sharing their desires and the other one is triggered by it. For the person sharing, can acknowledge, okay, he or she is triggered because they've never had this conversation before. They've never been exposed to this. They've never, opened themselves into curiosity of what sex can be. So it works, but it's a two-way street. Whereas the one that is getting triggered, they need to look at it and say, okay, this isn't about me. This is about the experience. So what am I actually feeling? Am I feeling that my partner has these desires which makes me feel abandoned or rejected?
Yep.
Am I feeling insecure?
Not enough.
Not enough, not good enough. And this is the triggers that come away. So it works both sides. And then when we allow ourselves to take a bird's eye view of the scenario, it's like, okay, I understand that my partner has never had these conversations about deep sexuality before. I accept that. But how do we navigate this together? And on the other way around, like I know I'm getting so triggered by this, but I know it's not my partner. It's just a mirror. It's a trigger that's coming up. How can we turn this trigger into glitter?
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah, that is a really big common one. It's not you, it's me. But it's like the biggest thing, and Rob and myself went through this for both of each other. It was just like really learning not to make it mean something about us. And I'm going to use this example here of and this can happen in any relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be open relationships and be monogamous relationships. He had a female friend who was blonde, and I was triggered by her. And I just had this internal like fire inside of me, and I didn't even know the woman. I didn't even know who she was. She was just blonde. And then as I went back on through, like, I sit in meditation, I really connect with myself. I'm like, I had an experience once where an ex-boyfriend cheated on me with a blonde girl. So I have imprinted into me that my partners cheat on me with blonde girls. And so because that had happened in my past relationship, I hadn't healed from that. I hadn't moved through that, and that came up again in this relationship. But this takes work. This takes inner work. This takes commitment to yourself. But for those maybe listening out there who are in a space of like, I'm always triggered by this woman or this colleague or someone in work, ask yourself, where in my life previously, my past relationships, have I had an experience that has been triggering that I maybe haven't healed from or haven't moved through, that is just coming up again in this relationship. Because if I hadn't have healed that and actually looked within myself and self-reflected, that would have kept happening and repeating itself in other relationships. And the reality is we're always going to repeat these triggers and patterns unless we actually look at ourselves and be like, okay, look, I can take this on board. And that is so uncomfortable. That is so vulnerable. But I know I trigger so many people out there. Like, it's kind of like intimidating or like curiosity. And that's because I'm just so open and just in everything I share and I do. And a lot of my clients as well, halfway through, it's like, Kate, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, okay, what is coming up? What is being triggered? And it often comes back to like this part of them that's really kinky, but they don't accept that. They don't want that to be seen within themselves, so they hide it in. But because I'm so open, they're like, oh, if I was like that too, I wouldn't feel closed off like that. And, it works with everyone, but it works so much deeper in relationships because we are always with that person. We see each other in like our most vulnerable, rawest selves. And that is a moment like if those triggers are going on, it's like, how can we move through this? How can we look at this? How can we understand this?
And it's worth doing the work because then, you've got more of an opportunity then to actually meet each other in some of those desires. And saying that though, you don't have to. Like a desires is not like a magic wish where you rub a genie bottle and you get your 3. You know what I mean? Like desires are something you can voice and you can talk about. But you don't have to accept or perform out and all of the desires that are shared as well. Like it always comes down to what everyone's comfortable with. The same thing goes for like a lot of desires around fantasies and stuff. Like sometimes they're just better as fantasies. Like when you try to translate them into the real world, it's like a bit of a letdown.
Absolutely. Like Rob's had that as well. Like he said to me, we did have an open relationship at one stage in our life, and he said that to me. It was just like, sometimes it's just better off as a fantasy. But the thing is, a lot of men will go and explore their fantasies behind their wives' back. They will have that experience and they'll think, oh God, what was this? And then there's so much more rupture then within the relationship. When the fantasy is, what I do with my clients is get them to get a piece of paper and a pen and write down 3 of their desires and fantasies. Then they swap it over and then they read them. But before that, we come into a safe space. We come into a space where, okay, if triggers come up, but we're going to work on these insecurities together. We're going to support you in moving through this. Okay, why am I triggered? Why is this affecting me? And then was like, okay, this is what my partner likes. If she wants to dress up like a nurse or a schoolgirl, how can we implement this into the relationship? So we're living this fantasy together rather than needing to search outside of the relationship.
I love that because that's like radical honesty in a relationship. Being able to have conversations about these things and bring these desires and these fantasies to your partner as opposed to just finding them online and indulging in this well behind you. Because we were talking about this last night, the amount of women anonymously sharing in these groups online about the issues that they're having with their partners with porn addiction, for example. And how a lot of them have completely lost all of the intimacy in their relationships because, the men are seeking this artificial intimacy through porn and rewiring their brains to the point where, it is so vanilla and monotonous to make love to their wife after they've exposed themselves to like every single, fantasy under the sun. The work of actually being able to get couples to bring these things in and find ways of, potentially acting on them or enjoying just even the fantasy process together, can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
In like the trust and the respect and the feeling of being like in true connection with each other.
And just as you're speaking that, what's coming up is this like there's so much embarrassment. And so for a woman to admit that her partner has a porn addiction, that makes her feel so low. Her self-esteem will be dropped. Her confidence will be comparing herself to others. And that is the issue. And, she can then rebuild herself up to be coming to that. But then if he is still watching, the artificial faked stage scenes, then they're just really going to be such an outbalance of the relationship. And he has to admit this to himself, which comes with a lot of vulnerability, honesty, and a lot of shame as well for a man who's, maybe watched porn for 10 years. It's so much to do the work, but on the other side of really working on that for your relationship, he's never going to need those videos again because he can have that in the pleasure and in the connection in the relationship.
Yeah, and I think because I've been in a previous relationship where a partner had a porn addiction. So like I've experienced it, previously. intimacy aside and even what happens in the bedroom, what it does to the man in terms of, cooking their dopamine, and they're being tired all the time and like kind of angry and pissed off, and like the shame spirals that they go into as a result of it. Like from like a mental health standpoint too, like it completely changes the man that you're with when they're way down the rabbit hole with porn addiction. Like it's like they become completely lifeless. Like we talked before about, sexual energy. It drains them of sexual, like there's no energy in them at all. And they're just constantly tired and depressed because they're cooking their dopamine every time they go and, do this. So that in itself puts an intense strain on the relationship, because like the energy of that person changes so much around you, as well as what happens in the bedroom. Like it's really tough. And as you said, it takes and I was lucky in that relationship, he actually admitted that he had a problem and was obviously actively trying to fix that. But yeah, for a lot of women out there, they're dealing with like a multitude of things.
It's quite heartbreaking, but I guess like I want to share for a woman that is navigating that within her relationship, you have to become so secure or so in tune with your own self that you know what is okay and what is not okay in relationship. And then if he isn't willing to put in the work or to get help, then you have to choose for yourself, why am I allowing myself to be treated like this in the relationship? And it's often, women we have a lot of mentally and emotionally going on prior to that, but we have to come into a space of like, okay, this is not okay. And why am I diminishing myself to keep accepting this? And the more that we come into ourselves, it's like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. Is he going to step up or is he going to drop off and keep repeating his patterns? And that's it. It's quite a fine line between how to navigate that for yourselves, and there's so many women out there navigating this by themselves in a relationship. But I do have another podcast. I spoke with a professional who works with mental health and porn addiction, so I'm going to link that one above so people can drop in and read onto that, because I feel like that could be a whole topic it's itself. A whole topic by itself, and that's probably like another part 3 for us to come into that. And as someone who has worked in the adult industry as well, I definitely have so many angles that I bring to it, but not just the entertainment factor, a lot of like the depth of the why behind the psychology of the porn addictions and how we're playing through that.
So what would you say then to someone who believes that porn can be harmless? Can it be harmless in a relationship?
If it's used in moderation. So I'm not anti-porn, but it's not like, if it's something like you do together, let's say you're having this date night and you want to play for a fantasy. It's like, okay, let's watch it together. Let's get some ideas. Do we want to be the maid and the hotel owner? Do we want to be the schoolgirl and the teacher? Like, what fantasies can we play with and just use it for inspiration? Or another one, like if I work with couples who want to have the threesome for the first time, there's watching threesomes online, with a threesome with a female, a threesome with a male, and just noticing in their body how this feels. Because if they feel sticky and uncomfortable, it's better to feel sticky and uncomfortable when you're just with your partner watching something online than actually going to have your first threesome experience and these feelings are going to come up. So in moderation like that, porn, it can be healthy, but I feel like if you really allow yourself to come into such a deep connection with your relationship, do you really need that?
Yeah, so you're saying like it's healthy in moderation when it's something you share with your partner.
Yeah.
And I guess unhealthy if it's something that you're doing
behind closed doors.
Back, because it becomes like a betrayal, essentially.
Absolutely. So if like someone is watching porn behind their back, they are getting off, they are having this dopamine hit, they are feeling, and then when they're bringing themselves into the relationship, just like you said before, like their sex drive is low, they're not going to want this, they're going to think that what they watch online is what they should be doing in the relationship, and it's completely not, because I can say firsthand, it's staged and it's set up. What we see in a 15-minute video online, there is so much more that goes in behind the scenes, and he's not always just hard. It's not always her going down on him. There's so much more to it, but that isn't obviously shown in that meets the eye with online videos.
Yeah, which explains a lot from previous relationships where I've been in, where the porn has been at play, and I felt like sex was just literally like porn, and there was no pleasure, there was no enjoyment. Like I never really even enjoyed sex up until the point that I met Jack, to be completely honest. And I think there was just so much influence of like porn being involved in that. So I think there are probably so many women who are having this experience particularly if their partners are watching porn and they're not telling them, and their sex life is as a result of that.
It
feeling very disconnected kind of experience. And when you have a truly connected experience like I did when I met Jack, like, you know the difference, right? But I don't think a lot of women know the difference. I think that's really sad.
And so much, but not just like within that, just in pleasure in general.
Yeah.
So many women live from the shoulders up. We are so switched off from our body, and we think that it's normal to, you know, to be in this hamster wheel all the time, go, go, go. But when that moment we can actually take a second to come back into our body and to feel, it's just like, oh, is this what like stillness feels like? Is this what slowness feels like? And then that's how we can take that into our pleasure for ourselves and into the relationship as well. Yeah, this was very, very juicy. I think, you know, that's definitely another subject to play onto that. But thank you so much. I'm so like grateful, and I love all the subjects that we've shared today and how much impact that this can have on women. And just, you know, maybe there's been some golden nuggets dropped in here for yourselves or your relationship. You can always reach out, pop it in the comments below. Come on inside the School of Sensuality. I have that if you don't want to communicate and you just want to like stay behind the phone, that's fine. You know, I have a lot of free resources for you guys as well that you can play with. So we are here if you have any questions. But I hope this was juicy. Definitely was. I love it. I so love it.
I could talk about this for hours. And I think since you landed in Sydney, I'm pretty sure it's dominated 80% of our conversations the whole time we've been here. And I think even for people to know, like even coming with this podcast, we didn't rehearse. We didn't even talk about what we're going to talk about. We just got in the Uber. We came here, we sat down, and this whole conversation has just come out completely organically, which shows what's possible when you do open up to conversation and you do feel comfortable talking about these topics with someone else. So hopefully we can, you know, get a ripple effect happening with some more women having, you know, contact a girlfriend today and go and have a chat about sex.
Yeah, and it's going to feel uncomfortable, but that's how it starts. That's how it starts. So thank you so much. Katie. Bye, guys.